Welcome to Astrology Mystica, Astrology for Mystics. This is Manda O'Brien here, coming to you with a spontaneous reading of the birth chart of Ireland. Ireland is very near and dear to my heart. It's where I grew up, and I have many friends and clients and family members in Ireland, and I wanted to just contribute my vision, my interpretation of Ireland's true birth chart. This is using true sky, true sidereal astrology, where everything actually was at the time when Ireland freed itself from the British Empire. And Tropical and Vedic may have come up with charts for Ireland, but those charts would not be accurate, so therefore the information contained therein would not be accurate. So this is an accurate birth chart for Ireland, and I just wanted to share what comes to me, my insights about not only the essential nature of Ireland, but also moving forward from this very powerful new moon we have coming up on May 16th, beginning a whole new lunar year. And just looking at what new energy is coming in for Ireland, being initiated by this new moon in May, and to contribute something, because I know there's been a lot going on there of late. But anyway, I hope you enjoy this, and if you have any comments or questions, please leave them down below in the comments area. But other than that, let's just dive right in. Okay, so as we know, countries have many birthdays depending on what's been going on. The official birthday for Ireland is the 18th of April, 1949. And that was at midnight that they officially became free of the rule of the English Empire. So I'm using that chart here. You'll see it here in front of you. And if we start looking at the chart, we can see on the bottom right there that we have the sun at 39 degrees of Pisces. So conjunct to that, literally right next to that, we have Venus at 39 degrees of Pisces. So this is really beautiful, and to me this is very accurate to my experience of Ireland, of essential Ireland, is this merging of the love of nature and the harmony of the heart merged with the sun that shines forth this energy. That the natural expression of the essential nature of Ireland is about love and nature and valuing what the heart values. This is a heart-centered energy. When you have the sun and Venus together, this speaks to the heart being completely aligned with the expression. And we have it here in the fifth house. And the fifth house has to do with creativity. It has to do with children, with romance, with fun, with playfulness, with celebration, but a lot to do with creativity. And if we look at the history of Ireland, and if we look at Ireland today, it's an extremely creative place. There are so many creative individuals there. And the creativity that comes out of Ireland has this flavor of the heart. And you can hear it in the music, you can feel it in the writing, in the poetry, and you can feel it in the people. I've been back to Ireland many times since I left there as a teenager. And I always love going home and just being in that very unique and ancient vibration, that gentle, compassionate vibration that I feel when I'm in Ireland. Also, we have the North Node there in Pisces, at 37 degrees, which is very close to the sun. It would be considered conjunct the sun. And Mars at 32 degrees of Pisces. So Pisces is a very essential part of the energy of Ireland. And Pisces is a water sign. And it's interesting because Ireland, as we know, is a small island surrounded by oceans on all sides. And water is not in short supply there. They have plenty of water. It's a very wet country, and because of that, the nature is very vital and very alive, and that's where we get that expression of the 40 shades of green, because literally when you're there, you can see this incredible psychedelic luminosity of the nature. It's so alive. And that's reflected here in the chart. The North Node is the destiny of the country. And so to have the North Node in Pisces speaks to the destiny being a very spiritual destiny and a destiny of compassion and having to wake up to all the illusions that are presented in life and to bring those into an experience of reality, to be able to face the illusions that show up. And the opposite to Pisces is Virgo. So, working with the challenges of daily life, and Ireland certainly spiritually has had a lot of challenges as a country over the last centuries. I don't know how far back you can go, but at least over the last 5 centuries, just being able to be who they are has been a challenge. Dealing with the domination that was coming from the British monarchy and the repression of their natural culture and their natural creativity. So here to see the North Node conjunct the Sun with Mars there also, to me speaks to the incredible tenacity that the Irish have with Mars there to be aligned with their essential nature, to have a healed relationship with the universe. Because, going through centuries of repression and then having religious organizations coming in and continuing that repression, where all the druids and all the magic and beauty and ancientness of Ireland had to go underground in order to stay alive. And they did. And this speaks to that Mars energy, that Mars is the warrior in the zodiac. He's the one that has the courage to stand up for what he believes in. And with Mars in Pisces, it's standing up for your spiritual sovereignty. And in the 5th house, your creativity, standing up for your children, for the generations to come. And this all speaks very clearly to me of what I've experienced in Ireland and the incredible strength of spirit that the Irish people have that comes from the land itself, the ancientness of the land, and the deeply spiritual quality of the energy in that area of the world. It's often been associated with the heart center of the planet, that particular location. So we have this incredible alignment here with the destiny of Ireland being around its creative and spiritual sovereignty, to be able to be itself and to contribute that to the world. And then we have Mercury in Aries in the 6th house. So Mercury being the expression, the communication. And in Aries, which is ruled by Mars, we also have this incredible bravery and authenticity in the communication that comes from the Irish people and also from the energy of Ireland itself, inspiring great poetry, great writing, revolutionary writing, and just the gift of the gab, also in terms of music, and being a pioneer in that regard. Aries is a very pioneering sign. And in the sixth house, it has a lot to do with this being the true service of Ireland. You know, the sixth house has to do with, you know, how we're here to be of service, how the universe uses us to be of service in the world, in life, and what we contribute, but not to be a servant. And I think that's very clear here with Mercury being in Aries. It's not about being a servant or being in servitude to anyone or anything. It's about true service, the service that comes through the universe, through the natural expression of the essential nature. And the natural expression with Ireland here is very brave and courageous and has a lot to contribute to pioneering and to expressing the heart and the mystical world. Pisces is the most mystical sign in the zodiac. So to have the Sun, Venus, the North Node, and Mars in this mystical area towards the end of Pisces here, completing a very long cycle for Ireland, Pisces being the last sign. It's a very mature soul, the soul of Ireland. It's been through a lot. And in this lifetime, it's very much about a completion. And however long, you know, the sovereignty of Ireland, however long it takes them to establish that. Because I feel like even though Ireland freed itself from the rule of the British monarchy and from the domination of the Catholic Church, it's still dealing with the issues with the EU and how the EU is using Ireland now to further its own agenda. And the EU may not be the British monarchy, but it still has an agenda of domination, and it has enforced and influenced Ireland in many ways since Ireland joined. And, you know, when we're looking at this chart here, we can see that for Ireland, it's about a soul purpose. It's a soulful country. So if we look at Pluto up there at the top in Leo in the ninth house, and Pluto has to do with the evolutionary journey of the soul, in this case of Ireland, and it's in Leo in the ninth house. So it's at 0 degrees actually, right on the cusp of Cancer and Leo. So it's going to include the flavor of both of those energies. It's sort of in a transitionary, evolutionary stage, moving from Cancer, which is all about the home and the family, and moving from that into Leo, which rules the fifth house, which is where the Sun, Venus, the North Node, and Mars are. So Leo is playing a very important role here, Pluto and Leo, bringing an evolution to the creative expression of Ireland, where it's not just about personal expression and personal creativity, because the opposite of Leo is Aquarius. And Aquarius is down here at the bottom of the chart in the third and fourth house. So it's about the evolution of the communication and expression of Ireland, bringing that creative, heart-centered expression into the world, Aquarius, into the bigger picture of life, through the third house, communication, and the fourth house, the home and family. So we can see the evolution here, that Ireland has an essential quality of creativity and expression that has been playing out more individually. And its destiny, you could say, or its potential, is to bring that unique, heart-centered creative expression out into the world. And that energy will help to bring more balance, more love, more mystery, more magic to what is being shared in the media, in publishing, which is the third house, and also in the fourth house, which has to do with family and ancestry and tradition. So there's a great contribution here that Ireland is making on that level. With Pluto being in the ninth house, it has to do with a transformation of the belief systems. And we can also see that being true because, as I was saying earlier, Ireland had to deal with an incredible amount of repression and indoctrination that went on for centuries, where, missionaries were coming in and asserting domination over the natural pagan and druidic societies and bringing in this Catholic ideology as if they were superior to these people who'd been living in harmony with nature for God knows how long. So this Pluto in the ninth house really does speak a lot to the transformation of the belief systems that Ireland has been going through and bringing that into a more authentic expression. And I can see that happening in Ireland, going back over the years from when I grew up there, back in the 70s, that, there's areas of the west of Ireland now that I would consider to be like the California of Ireland, where there's all these really beautiful people who are living in harmony with nature, who are pioneering this return to living in harmony with nature and living in harmony with our souls, and have been stepping out of the organized religions and stepping out of the politics and the bureaucracy and creating their own unique communities. That again is the opposite polarity there of Aquarius, where we are creating our own picture of the oneness of life and not being dominated and controlled by somebody else's ideas coming in. Pluto in Leo in the ninth house. Leo also has a lot to do with monarchies. And so with Pluto there in Leo, it's the death of the monarchies, the death of the presence of the monarchies, because Pluto has to do with transformation coming about through death, through the endings of things. And it also reveals the deep, hidden, dysfunctional energies that are operating, the unconscious energies that are operating under the surface. And you could say that the whole domination of Ireland was coming from an unconscious urge to control this country that had such a richness of mysticism and natural connection with the magic of life. I mean, when I was growing up, from about the age of 3, I was reading and my mom was reading books to me, and they were all about mythology and Irish fairy tales and folk tales and The Hobbit. And, my world was just full of the magic of ancient Ireland and the myth of ancient Ireland. And it's so rich in the culture. And this is also something that Ireland has to share, is the current expression of that coming through the people who are alive now and who are living in Ireland and what they have to share. And my family is in publishing, and they have published many, many, many books on all these subjects. So we also have Saturn there in Leo at the top, at 15 degrees of Leo in the ninth house. And Saturn is very much about the limitations that we have to deal with and the lessons that we're learning and what we're mastering and what we end up then sharing what we've learned. So in this situation, Ireland is mastering that energy, those beliefs that have come in through the monarchies. Again, Leo, Saturn in Leo. The monarchies imposing their will, dominating, limiting, controlling, repressing. They've had to deal with that. And through that, they've become stronger. Their individuality has become crystallized in a certain way, I feel. And I feel that Ireland's time is here in terms of what they have to share, what their unique destiny is with this heart-centered creativity that is innate to Ireland, that their time has come, that this energy is reaching its maturity, you could say. And I will be looking a little bit at the transits further on to see what's actually happening now. But if we move over, looking at the South Node there in Virgo in the 11th house, so having to deal with a lot of social issues from the past and to put those down. Now, the South Node is what we've lived, what we've come through. And it can be a great source of strength and intuitive understanding, but it has to be transcended. We're moving towards the North Node, which is there in Pisces in the 5th house. So in this regard, Ireland is actually taking back its power from the collective conditioning, from the collective world, and bringing it into a more individualistic expression, so that the individuals, the creative individuals who are living in Ireland, and creativity can mean people who write, who speak, who are artists, musicians, farmers, permaculture. You know, there's a huge presence of biodynamic farming. There's a huge presence of healing. And this is all ruled by Virgo. So it's bringing, Ireland has brought this old version of those things into a new birth, into a new expression. And if you go there, especially if you go to the west of Ireland and even down into Kerry and Cork, there's an incredible amount of alternative healers, of amazing music, dancing, theater, all kinds of creative expression that's going on, and people living on their land and growing their own food. And it's so alive and vital. And that's this 5th house expression, the North Node, coming into actuality. And I think it's taken a long time, actually, for that to come about. So the ascendant of Ireland, the rising sign, is Scorpio. It's at 4 degrees of Scorpio, and Chiron is right there at 7 degrees of Scorpio. So the ruler of this chart really is Pluto and Mars as a sub-ruler. And this is very powerful. To have Pluto and Mars as the ruler of a chart gives a lot of energy, a lot of transformational capacity to the destiny of Ireland. You know, Pluto is to me, the most powerful influence in the chart. That's why it rules the evolution, because it's such a long, slow moving planet. It takes 250 years to do one orbit of the sun. And with Mars and Pluto there together ruling this chart, this gives an incredible amount of vitality and dynamic energy. It also shows how Ireland has had to deal with so much aggression and violence, because Pluto and Mars, if used unconsciously, are very destructive forces. And Ireland has definitely had to deal with a lot of destructive forces coming in. And they have endured and transformed that energy. And I think they're still working with that energy, because it's part of their destiny to use that energy to fuel their creative expression. And Scorpio as a rising sign is also a very mystical energy. And to me, with Chiron there, the planet of the wound for Ireland has a lot to do with Scorpio themes, what they're healing. And, sexuality would have a large part in that. And we know that through the repression that is inherent in the Catholic religious system, that Ireland has had to deal with a lot of sexual wounding through the generations. Because any organization that separates men and women creates sexual wounding, because it's not natural. It's not natural for men to be separated from women. And when they are, the sexual energy becomes repressed, and then it becomes perverted, it becomes distorted and wounded. And that wounding then gets translated into the culture through these religious organizations. And this is not just my opinion. This is a fact that this has happened in Ireland, and they've had to deal with that. And with Chiron being there, it's about coming into a true, natural, healed expression of their sexuality and also of their spirituality, because Scorpio rules death. It also, because it's ruled by Pluto, it rules transformation. And it can have a lot of hidden aspects that need to be brought into the light. So you could say that a lot of the wounding of Ireland has been covered up, has been hidden, because it takes an incredible amount of courage to face that level of vulnerability and to not buy into the belief systems, Pluto and Saturn in Leo in the ninth house, that there's something wrong with you if you go through an experience like that it's something to be ashamed of, when actually it's just something to be healed and something to be faced, and to realize that we can transform anything. Pluto being the ruler of this chart, we can transform anything. That the universe brings in these energies of polarity, these experiences in the world, these wounding and traumatic experiences in the world, so that we can learn how to transform them, how to transcend them, to know that they don't define who we are, that who we are is so much more vast than that, and that the things that have happened in the past, the South Node, can be left in the past. And that's the beauty of life, in that any given moment you can start from here, from now, and move forward and be discontinuous with the past And this is something that Ireland has really had to learn and deal with over the generations, is to be able to accept the past as it has happened and to acknowledge the wounding and the repression that occurred because of these energies that came in and attempted to destroy the natural expression of the Irish culture. But they have persevered, and they are transforming and healing this energy to this day. Another area of the chart that I find interesting is this Jupiter down here in Capricorn at 0 degrees, again on the cusp of Capricorn and Sagittarius. And this is also a very powerful place. And right now, Pluto is in Capricorn, and Jupiter is the planet of the benefactor. It brings in good fortune through that sign and through that house. And we have Jupiter here at 0 degrees of Capricorn in the second house. And the second house has to do with what we love and value. So when Ireland is true to what it loves and values, blessings and good fortune come in. And it comes in the form of physical, because the second house is ruled by Taurus, which is an earth sign. So it comes in through the physical manifestation of that in the material world. And the second house is ruled by Venus, and Venus rules the arts, music, creativity on that level. So a lot of benefits come into Ireland because of its innate creative skills and inspiration and how it expresses itself, creativity, in terms of creativity, and that it holds a great value for creativity. Having Jupiter there in the second house, expanding that area. And we can also see that in Ireland, is that it seems to have an inexhaustible ability to express itself creatively, whether it's through the traditional Irish music scene in the west of Ireland or through the writing and publishing world that goes on there, or through the healing world and the farming world. All these areas are expressing the heart, the connection to life, the mystical realms. So, it has a natural destiny to expand this. And the moon is there at 5 degrees of Sagittarius in the first house. So with Chiron and a Fucus there, the sign of a Fucus in the first house. And a Fucus is the hidden 13th zodiac sign that was removed from the zodiac over 2,000 years ago by the popes and by the mathematicians coming together and creating the false system, the man-made system that's called tropical and Vedic astrology. They weren't involved in the Vedic man-made system, but they were very much involved in the tropical man-made system. And they removed the sign of a Fucus from the zodiac because the constellation of a Fucus is located at the galactic center of our solar system. And it represents our connection with Source. It's the most mysterious place in our solar system. It's a black hole. And it was removed from our zodiac system, even though it is on the path of the ecliptic that the sun passes through and that all the planets pass through. It was hidden. And this is also representative for Ireland of how the ancient Druidic traditions and the traditions of mysticism were hidden from their identity for centuries. The first house is your identity, how you present yourself. It has to do with your body. So this wound for Ireland has a lot to do with the physical body for Irish people, freeing themselves from this wounding of repression, of this rejection of who they were naturally by these forces, these dark forces that came in to usurp their power and to dominate and control them physically. And that's part of the wound. But with the fucus there in the first house, the true identity of Ireland is around mysticism. It's a mystical place. And so with the moon there in the first house in Sagittarius, you could say emotionally, the most important thing for Ireland is its truth, to be true to itself. Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, has to do with our truth, and it has to do with that truth in relation to the bigger picture of life and the world. And it's that emotional connection to truth and the courage to stand in the truth that Ireland has received all this wounding because of that, because of its Mars-Pluto tenacity to move in the direction of its truth, to free itself from the illusions, and to stand in its own authority and stand in its own true essential nature, that this wounding to its identity has come about. But that's what Chiron's there for, is to heal it. Chiron there in Scorpio with its polarity point of Taurus, and Taurus being about Ireland coming back into valuing its essential quality, valuing what it has to contribute, this beautiful, mystical, heart-centered expression that it has naturally. I'm not going to go into all the aspects because there's so many aspects here in this chart, in the chart of Ireland, but one of the ones that I see that I think is important is this trine, which is a positive flow of energy between Pluto and Mars, the two rulers of this chart. And that's a very positive influence. It means that when Ireland moves in the direction of transforming and standing up for itself and being the warrior, the spiritual warrior, and protecting itself, it's supported by Pluto. And that's really important. And we can see just recently when the Irish farmers stood up to the EU and basically was saying we can't function, we can't run our farms with the amount of taxes that are being put on our fuel. And they stood up and made their case, and it had an effect. And my mom was telling me that the prices came down back to where they should be, and that they had no choice but to remove those taxes. And this is the kind of energy that Ireland has when it stands up for itself. Pluto has its back. Pluto comes in and supports that transformation. It also has some beautiful aspects between the sun, Venus, and the moon. Some very harmonious energy there. So when Ireland is aligned within itself, when it's operating from a place of wholeness, then very positive things can happen. There's also all kinds of sextiles and positive aspects between Uranus and Venus and the North Node. Uranus being up there in Gemini, on the cusp again. And this is a theme that I'm seeing here with this chart. We've got Uranus at 0 degrees of Gemini. And actually, Uranus right now is at about 15 degrees of Taurus. So, within the next, I would say, 5 to 8 years or so, Ireland will be having a Uranus return. And this is a very powerful transit that only happens every 84 or so years. And it brings in a new level of freedom, of individuality, and especially innovation. And my sense is that the destiny of Ireland includes a lot of creativity that supports awakening, that supports innovation, but innovation that serves love, not innovation that serves the global cabal and the old world order that is on its way out. As we have Pluto in Capricorn right now, breaking down all these old dysfunctional systems, these man-made systems that serve death, that serve violence and greed and domination. And the new order that's coming in is not the new order that they're talking about, on YouTube. To me, the new order that's coming in, and there may be some people on YouTube talking about this new order, but the new order that's coming in to me is coming in through the Cancer polarity. And it's about that power needs to serve love, that power without love is not true power. It's just domination. It's just bullying. It's just destruction. But power that serves love and respects nature and respects our sensitivity and our vulnerability and that respects life. Cancer is the mother, gives birth to life. So basically, when we're serving life, then that is true freedom. That is true innovation. And so Ireland's going to have this Uranus return, but with its natal Uranus in Gemini in the 7th house, this has a lot to do with how it relates to itself and to the world. And the 7th house is all about partnerships and relationships. And we can see here that Uranus is opposite to the moon, which is in the 1st house. And this is a polarity. So for Ireland, it's really had to work through a lot of emotional challenges to express itself in relationships in a unique way. This wounding around the sexuality, and that would have had an effect on the relationships. And you can see, less people are getting married. People now are realizing that these institutions, signing a piece of paper doesn't guarantee that someone's going to love you forever, and Uranus is bringing in a lot of radical awakening and realization around these things, that true relating comes from respect, mutual respect, and acceptance that we have our differences and that each person's uniqueness has to be respected. And that's also true in marriages and in relationships and business partnerships. So there's a lot of potential there that's unfolding with Ireland. And Gemini has to do with coming from a balanced perspective, not being manipulative in relationships, but being balanced in the sense of respecting our yin and yang natures and working with them together, honoring the beauty of both. Because the 7th house is ruled by Venus, and we have Venus down there in Aries. Actually, no, she's in Pisces, at 39 degrees, conjunct the sun. So the ruler of the 7th house is in very good aspect to the Sun, and there's sextiles there between Uranus, the Sun, and Venus. So there's a potential here for a very new expression of relationships coming in, being birthed in Ireland. Once they start valuing their own unique way, which is already happening, and people choosing to not involve the legal system in every aspect of their love relationships, that maybe those two have nothing to do with each other. And if they choose to involve, then that's their choice. But that the foundation of relating is mutual respect and appreciating the differences. That's Uranus, appreciating the uniqueness that we all bring to the table and honoring that, instead of, we have here in the first house the wound that I'm not okay the way I am, that, it's not okay for me to show up physically as I am. And this is something that's being healed, and I can see it myself with the amount of healing that's going on in Ireland and the amount of healers that there are there now, and just the courage that they have to face the past and to become discontinuous with it. So if we start to look at some of the transits that are going on, other than that Uranus return, currently we have Saturn over the North Node of Ireland and Chiron over the Sun and Venus. So right now there's a lot of lessons happening around the future destiny of Ireland, and they're being faced with the challenges of Saturn, the establishment, the government coming in and asserting its authority. But with Chiron there in the fifth house, basically transiting over Venus and the Sun as I'm recording this, there's also an incredible potential at the moment and moving forward for some very deep healing that I'm sure is coming through because of people expressing their frustration with all of these ridiculous wars that are going on that are not serving anyone except the people that are controlling and manipulating them, and the forces, the dark forces behind those people. But for Ireland, I can see that this most recent event that they've had to deal with is actually bringing in healing and having a positive effect and bringing in strength. Mars is also there. So part of the other transits that I see happening here are Venus is in Taurus, and these transits that I'm looking at are for this new moon that's happening on May 16th in Taurus, the beginning of the new lunar year. I just wanted to take a look and see at what new energies will be coming in for Ireland with this new moon. And Venus will be entering, she'll be in Taurus when this new moon occurs. And this new moon will be happening in Ireland's 6th house in the sign of Taurus. So a new understanding of what Ireland's what Ireland is in true service of. What does it really serve? This new moon is activating that question, that area, and bringing in some very beautiful energy because Venus rules Taurus. And so this new moon is ruled by Venus. And Venus for Ireland is conjunct the sun in Pisces. So I feel some new understandings, some new expressions of Ireland's sovereignty, spiritually and creatively, are coming in with this new moon. A year where there's going to be a lot of creativity, a lot of new creativity that is of service, of true service to the world, to the bigger picture, to the North Node of Ireland. And Uranus is also involved in this new moon. So yeah, a lot of new energy coming in for Ireland, new creativity, new innovation. And we have Venus up there in the 7th house, in Ireland's 7th house, getting ready to go into Gemini. So going over Ireland's natal Uranus. So this is going to be very interesting. I think there's going to be some very interesting new energy showing up in Ireland that's connected with what the essential love, what Ireland essentially loves, what its nature is, the heart of Ireland expressing itself in new ways and coming through in new ways through individuals and what they're creating. And moving around the chart, I guess the last thing I would look at here is that the South Node currently is about to go over Ireland's natal Saturn. So there could be some belief systems from the past, some challenges from the past that have to be looked at, the South Node, that have to be released at this time. There will be opportunities to release that Ireland is not where it was, it's where it is now, and that it has a lot more power than it realizes. And the true power of Ireland comes from its natural connection to the heart and to the world of the mysteries and to its creativity and to the people, the ordinary people that are creating all the beautiful expressions of Ireland through music, through writing, through art, through dance, through the healing arts, through food, all of these things that as it gets past, as this South Node goes over Saturn, there's going to be a new phase beginning where Ireland is starting to come into its mastery more than it ever has. And these new levels of mastery will be expressed and shared with the world, the North Node, and everyone will benefit from this. So I think that's enough said. I didn't mean for this to be so long, but I am Irish. So I just want to say a big hello out there to all my friends and family and clients in Ireland who might be listening to this. Thank you so much for supporting my work and for being part of my life. And send lots of love out there to whoever's listening to this, wherever you are. And until the next time, I'll be back with the new moon, the beginning of the new lunar year in Taurus, May 16th, wishing you all the best.